Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. My name's Matt Payne and I'm going to be bringing you all of today's action and attempting to make some sense of what is going to be a fast and frantic qualifier race number one of our May block of races. A block of 5 races, 4 qualifiers and 1 final where the big prizes are handed out, and really looking forward to seeing how the action goes. As you can tell from our graphics, we are back in the big mountains once again. Expect hairpin turns, big gradients, and big climbs. And as you can see from your screen, the course divided up into 4 main sectors. We kick off going through town with the big climbers, the big rollers, the big kickers that are going to break the groups up. Then into the desert dunes section, which is we're going to see a little bit more reinforcement, maybe see a little bit whittling down of that group. We then go into the flatter section and we run in and along between 15.5 and 34.5 kilometers before hitting the final mountain. We're back on the Jebel Hafid, going up onto the empty mountain and hitting the top of that climb, and the finish line being the same point that the UAE tour was. And if you haven't watched the video on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel of the team, make sure you dive on there and play it back, and make sure you give us a subscribe as well so that you know when we're going live with all of our coverage. We're covering the men's and the women's race today. The men's challenge, 45 kilometers of total elevation across there of 1,017 meters. One of our favorite courses for our riders. Not sure it's our riders' favorite course though, because it is really tough from the word go. Along the way, 7 segments. These will give us time checks. They're not worth points, they're not worth prizes, but what they do show is who's moving quickly, who's moving slowly, who's maybe catching up, who's feeling strong, and it gives us some really nice data on our riders as well. So we'll be able to look at their watts per kilo, the power they kick out, and their heart rate as well. 3 categories of rider. Category number 1, top category, UAE clan team. The team to beat big hitters in there. Mr. X100, Pablo Popovic, SS Said, Safrizan. But watch out for the UAE Road Warriors. Well, for Salah Amin, beat up there are Ahmed A. Abbas Lecole, always strong. Stefan Van Ace in there. Yorkshire Pudding Express with the one and only Phil Graves. He is the man normally to beat in terms of racing, but watch out for the Danish Pavlova squad. Jason Osborne, always strong, very proven winner as well. The next PB insured, they've got Zach Net and John Brun and Richard Keller in. Team Italy B covered by the riders in there, and watch out for Maglio and Caligo. They're likely to be looking to be strong today. Drafts have 1 rider, but boy, what a rider in Bruce Bird. The Community Sports Club, the one and only Badu Yusuf. We also have our individual riders, Rakad Al-Thib, one of the key men to watch out for. Lewis Ridley in there out and riding a big Category 1 contingent today. And all of those riders will be looking to take away the honours of being the fastest riders, getting a scalp over their competitors, and of course really getting some teamwork dialed in and making sure that everybody's really got the course nailed as well. In category 2, lots of individual riders, but watch out for Rybred Racing's Will Cornish back once again. The DS team have in there David Milano. Don't forget the climbers team. Now Il Pino and Guiano are going to be the 2 riders I would watch out for. Mr. G always proves strong. The X-Pro squad, always very quick with Tom Harvey in and Alfonso and Cristiano Kennep. Salam Bike Shop team, Kappa Romero, Primera and Balthazar, all of which could be scoring big today with the Cycle Zone Tri team. From Mendoza, and of course the UAE Falcons, well, they have Zaid Hamad as well as Hassan Al Rametri, who are going to be taking it on with Category 3, Tim Bank. Nankai, CM Team Renegades, Team Italy, and the SBS squad. So will it be Melendres from the SBS squad? Team Italy's Finatis. We've got Dario and Simone in there as well. But watch out for Binankai. They always act very strong. And we are off from the go. Quick start here today on MyWhoosh for qualifier number 1. And the start is already blistering. You can see the countdown kicking in very quickly today. And the riders at the moment, we're just riding. You can see Mitch Ferry just going over the top there of Phil Graves. Ferry, of course, riding with Graves on the Yorkshire Pudding Express. But you can see at the moment it's going to be Balthazar, the rider that we did warn you about, who looks like he's gone on the offensive very, very early. So Moises Balthazar from the Slam Bike Shop squad got the fastest kick out from the gun. However, just starting to be passed now. This is where he's got to think carefully. Any of these Category 2 riders have to think about, do they sit with the big hitters like Mr. X100, like Saeed Safrazad, like Jason Osborne? Are you going to stay with them? You're going to try and hold them. We come around the side here, but our big hills come very quickly with a couple of really steep kickers coming in the first few kilometers, and this will really test the riders already. I think these riders are feeling refreshed and fighting. Remember, of course, lots of these riders taking part in our final. Make sure you go back and watch the video. It was absolutely thrilling to see who was going to take out the big money prizes. And remember, the team prizes and the individual riders really do count for these riders. That's what they're looking for when they go into those finals. They have to ride at least 2 qualifiers, and the results verified, and the results then become final results. They have an unofficial, then an official status on the results page. Now, Graves at the front at the moment, he's looking to take this on and looking to make it hard. I think from the gun here, he's been riding super strongly. He rode all 3 of the qualifiers in the last block of races and the final. The man is really making this series his own, but it is Ferry, his teammate, who's alongside then Safrazad, Mel going through, Keller up on the heels, Van East in the mix. Very, very tight. Pablo Popovic in there, Juan David Vargas as well. And you can see these riders in that first cat, the yellow jerseys are just starting to stretch a little bit of a gap. And I think Mr. X100 has got to be careful here. He's just sitting in the edge of group number 1 with the breaker splits just starting to happen a little bit further back. You can just see Ryan Giuliano just starting to push. He's got Urego and Romero alongside Tom Harvey just coming through as well. So those second category riders need to push up in the mix. As you can see, the shadows just falling down. The sun low on the horizon currently on the first part of our MyWhoosh race, and SS now going to the front. Now, are we going to see SS Mr. X100 doing what they do on the rise? If you go out on a MyWhoosh's ride, make sure you get signed up, get that app downloaded. The riders are out and riding regularly on that MyWhoosh app, and great to see that they're already up at the front of the mix. Will they be looking to keep that pressure on a little bit further back? You can just see Hassan in the second category trying to keep that push on, just trying to make sure they don't lose too much contract. Currently sitting in 22nd place, that leading pack of 20 or so riders just hitting the slopes. You can see on the left hand side of your screen 4%, nearly 5.9% on that kick. It levels out. Another kick, and Graves and Ferry I think are looking to take this out upon the front. They're not wanting to make life easy for anybody to go over the top. And are the riders Mitch Ferry and Philip Graves both riding for the Yorkshire Pudding Express, looking to put in a bit of a breakaway early on. You can just see those gaps are starting to open up on the course at the moment, and that is going to be doing the damage to the riders behind Rashid at the moment, just trying to push on and doing a good job at the moment, just trying to squeeze in with the back of the group just in front of him. But Graves it is at the moment, who has that slight gap, 2 seconds, 3 seconds back to our winner from qualifying number 3 last time. That's Ollie Jones. Super strong sprinter. Then he's got to use that sprint power to get up and over these climbs. Just having a little look, it looks like Johan Moreno in the mix at the moment. So Johan Moreno doing a great job just mixing it up with the riders in front. He's a category 2 rider, one of our individual riders. Not got a teammate in there, but he's sitting in with our leading riders. The Colombians really are showing just why they are fearsome climbers, and why you've got to watch out for them. The moment it goes uphill, you can just see Johan Moreno in here in the greener jersey, that second category jersey, working well. Yusuf Bado in here, and Yusuf, another of our big hitters, always in the mix up at the front. And you can see by the numbers they are working hard. But Graves now with a 3-second gap to Van Elst, a 4-second gap to SS. He's going to have the fastest time through the segment. Here they come. So Bird goes through the fastest time. In fact, he's closed down some of the time out on Phil Graves, who had that lead going through. Mr. X100 clearly on form here, getting the 393 mark, 5.5 watts per kilo. Van Elst 5.8. Of those riders in there, you can see Mr. X 100, 138, 137 Bruce Bird, their heart rates, trying to keep them down, saving that strength for later. If you look at the teams, well, Yorkshire Pudding Express well represented, but the UAE Clan team is showing why they are the team to beat, with Mr. X100, Pablo Popovic, along with Said Safrazad and SS, all in the mix in the top 12 riders on segment number 1K segment. And that's done and dusted very quickly. Our next segment kicks in at 5 kilometres. They come thick and fast, only another 600 metres, 500 metres now for our leaders before they hit segment number 2. Meanwhile, a little bit further behind, it's only a couple of 100 metres, 200 metres from this chasing group trying to close down on the leaders. It's literally around this bend as Graves continues to push on the front and everyone's trying to get back across. Meanwhile, this chasing group are doing a great job. They are literally just in the slipstream. They're not all that far behind, and they're going to have to try and push to get back in. But with these constant attacking on the front from Ollie Jones, Phil Grace, and SS, they are really starting to break this group up from the word go. Aggressive, fast riding already here on MyWhoosh as they start to accelerate. We're just in with Juan David Vargas on the right of your screen, just sitting in the draft. His numbers of what's in green, the numbers in what's on the black as SS is on the chase. He's got his teammates behind him. Look at this. It's a UAE Clan team time trial. SS, Mr. X100, Said Safrazad and Pablo Popovic all doing the work here to close down Jones and Graves. They can see the danger of the two riders going clear, and they are working. They're going to take up Mitch Ferry, the teammate of Graves, across, but that is a price that they're prepared to pay. They're going to bring back Bruce Bird as well, but they have to close the gap down. They cannot let Graves and Jones disappear off down the road. It may be a long way to the base of the empty mountain to the LA site, but it is not something that you want to let a gap go on even at this stage, because if you give enough room, enough sliding room to riders of Graves and Jones's caliber, then they're going to be down the road and you're not going to see them again. It just means the guys behind have to work really hard here. Now Mr. X100 goes on the right hand side, red hair at the moment, a red bike. Then just in front you see Said Safrazad, but it's SS leading this chase in that gold cap. So we go in through the segment. Here's the segment times. So they pulled a little bit out. They have Bruce Bird, Mr. X100, Pablo Popovic, Said Safrazad, Mitch Ferry, the top 5 riders through. Graves and Jones losing time, 0.789 and 0.825. They've lost in that gap between themselves and Bruce Bird, our leader through that section, with the UAE Clan team are really starting to pull up at the front. The Yorkshire Pudding Express, well, Vidal Mel and Mitch Ferry taking a ride at the moment on the Clan Team Express. Never mind the Yorkshire Pudding Express. They're the ones who are jumping on the train, and they're letting the Clan team do the work to pull back Phil Graves and Ollie Jones. A little bit further back, you can just see the riders just exchanging places a little bit in the 11th and 12th spot, and that is because they are further down the race field, and those times are vulnerable. But this leading group coming up onto the elevated roadway, this is the first massive kick here. It absolutely screams when you come in here. Your legs feel like lead as you come up, and Yusuf Badu has got to keep the pressure on. He can't afford to let a gap go. He's going to go alongside Bruce Bird. Bird at the moment at the back here. Bruce Bird, a regular winner on the big climbs, not looking like he's wanting to do too much work too early. He's let everybody else do the chasing down of Phil Graves, but it's Graves on the front with Mr. X100 coming up to the front. Graves out there with the brown hair, Mr. X100 with the red hair. And the big chase going on, all going up and round, and it looks like they have dropped at least one of our riders. We're going to see who has got it. Is it Yusuf Padu who has got off the back of that group? It's not going to be long before we find out, because we're going to be hurtling around to our next segment. It's coming thick and fast here. Our next segment coming in 1,200 meters time, 8.4K to 9.4K. So Early skirmishes of coming thick and fast in the racing at the moment. Our leading group on the left of your screen, chasing groups working hard behind. Group number 2 is on the right of your screen at the moment. The distance between our two groups at the moment, 500 meters. That is all. And that is because all these groups are working incredibly hard to try and keep these gaps closed down with less than half a kilometer, separating groups 1 and 2 out on the roads already. In between groups 1 and 2, we do have a number of people just starting to struggle to stay with group number 1, and that is doing some damage. But group number 2 packed full of riders in that second category competition, and they're all looking to take away the bragging rights. Everybody wants to take away that win. Everybody wants to take away the kudos of going up on the top spot, knowing what it takes to beat their rivals when you're out and racing on the Sunday Race Club. Remember, the Sunday Race Club, every single Sunday, you are bringing you men's and women's racing. I bring it to you live, of course, on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. Make sure you give that a subscribe. Don't forget, you can follow me. That's at Matt Fixer Payne on the MyWhoosh out. You can, of course, catch up with me on Strava and on Facebook as well. And always great to see what our riders are up to when they're out and riding, whether that is on MyWhoosh, whether it's on a track discipline, on a mountain discipline, or whether it is hitting these segments now as they come in through. Mr. X100 there, just going into that segment first. This is the gap back, and you can just see it is Yusuf Badu who has been dispatched from the lead group. He's 28 seconds deficit at the moment. He's got the chasing group behind coming quickly because the group of second category riders are at 43 seconds at the moment. So they are going to try and close it down on him. Badu goes in through into the segment, but the leaders are now over 300 meters in front of the chasing rider. Left of your screen, Ollie Jones sat in the slipstream, conserving energy. Badu's not got anybody to sit in the slipstream of. He's having to do all the work himself on that right-hand side of your screen. 171 beats per minute versus Jones's 142. Similar cadence pedal revs, 80s. For both riders sitting around about the low 80s, but Badu really having to push 171 beats per minute, 300 plus watts because he sat not in the draft. Meanwhile, this leading group continues to push, taking advantage of the draft of the other riders. As you would find if you're riding on the track or riding on the road, that draft is all important. It allows you to save energy. All the coaches will tell you it's about saving your energy so you really, really need it. Now, Graves and Mr. X100 goes through. Let's see who's going to have the fastest time through there. Graves is going to take it by 0.46 of a second from Mr. X100 and SS sitting at 0.557. In fact, all of the leading 8 riders coming through within 1 second of each other, with Bruce Bird the slowest time of the 9 leaders who have gone through that segment. So 9 leaders clear at the top of the race. And our 10th place rider, I think, is going to be Badu. So in the top 10, he's coming up to checkpoint number 3. So that'll flick up onto the right-hand side of your screen. So into segment 3 comes. Here comes the time. And he's lost 11.89 seconds in that 1 kilometer segment. And that shows you the power of sitting in the draft, of sitting and working together as a group. Collaboration is key when you're riding on here, as we see another rider starting to push on the front. And yet again, it's Phil Graves. Graves, I think he's got ants in his pants or something at the moment. He doesn't want to sit still in that group. He wants to get up and run fast and get clear. And at the moment, ants he's going at a right up pace. Graves has got the speed. The army of ants behind. Well, it's SS leading, then Ferry, then 100, then Mel going. Safrasad trying to close down. And again, you can see it's the UAE clan team being left to do the work with SS in there. Vidat Mayer and Mitch Ferry are not going to do the work. They're teammates of Graves. So Graves is really trying to rip it up on the front. I wonder if he's just sacrificing himself a little bit at the moment as they make their way in through. So left-hand side of your screen, our leaders are coming on the way out, with Graves with a fractional gap at the moment. The chasing group are behind, riding strongly. They've got to try and keep this gap down. They won't want to lose too much time, but the power of that leading at front pack, very, very strong indeed. Yeah, just watching group number 2 at the moment. You can just see Erasmus 3 just going through. Balthazar in the group as well. Bello in there. Mr. G's working well. They are all trying to keep the gap down to an absolute minimum, but it really does take some doing. We're just seeing Rashid in that group as well, who's one of our Category 1 riders, just in trouble into group number 2. But Graves again has gone on the front, and look at this SS now having to answer this attack by Graves. This is making the team from the UAE clan team a work here. The Yorkshire Pudding Express have brought riders out in strength, in depth. Vidal Mayer, you've got Mitch Ferry riding for that Yorkshire Pudding team. You've got Paul Odlin and Phil Graves. Phil Graves constantly attacking at the moment, trying to break up the rhythm of the riders behind, making them work and trying to burn up some of the strength of that UAE clan team. The UAE clan team, though, are not having any of it. Graves keeps on going on the front, trying to break clear, and he's not getting a definitive gap, but he is continually eking out a little bit, centimetre by centimetre. Then they close back. Then he breaks clear again, and it shows you just how strong this rider is. So Graves at the moment on the front, 106 metres of climbing done. Currently sitting at 12 kilometres into the course. The chasing group number 2, a little bit further back, sandwiched in between while our chasing a group of Category 1 riders being led by SS at the moment. Mr. X100 pushing up on the left-hand side of the screen there with the redhead just tucking in. I suspect he's going to lend some firepower. SS, Pablo Popovic, Said Safrazad are all working in there. All UAE clan riders. They are giving a free ride, though, to the teammates of Phil Graves here, along with the rest of them, because the teammates of Graves will quite happily let him go up the road. I'd let my teammate go for minutes at a time and let me get there early. They can buy the coffees when they get there. It's looking, though, like Graves at the moment with that 7, nearly 8-second lead has gone through. He's got the gap, but he's 12k into what is a 45-kilometre course. So here we go. Coming in to our next segment. This is segment number 4, the first in the dunes section. So we've gone from town, out of town, now going into the sandy dunes, and this is where you've got to be really, really strong. This is where SS and Mr. X100 are particularly strong. If you go on a run, they'll always kick through here. This is a section that seems to suit their strengths, and it looks like SS at the moment on a mission to close down Graves in front. Now, Pablo Popovic and Mr. X100 are riding it as a group here, as a team. The UAE clan team really pushing on. Bruce Bird has been biding his time at the back, but now starts to work his way up to the front of that group. We're about to hit the big kicker of the dune. Here we go, up and over the top, 5% almost as you go into the steepest section. We're going to drop down, but this is by no means over. We're going to take that right-hand turn here in front of the Hummers out on the left-hand side, and then it sweeps around, and we've got another big kick coming up over the next dune. Top right of your screen, you can see the dots spreading out as they keep on kicking, and then you can see them compressing once again. This now, the next steep kick in the dunes. We've got the front of the group on the left of your screen, the back of the group on the right of your screen, and you can see as the camera goes skywards, it is Graves who's got the gap, but it is only 1 second. It's tenuous at the moment, and here comes Ferry. His teammate has gone across. He's used the power. The UAE clan team and Mr. X100 now having to close the gap. He's bringing back SS by the look of it. The two are riders distance, and he's going to go right through. If he's not careful here, he's going to hurdle through the front, and maybe he's going to start sticking it back to the Yorkshire Pudding team, but he shuts the throttles down a little bit there. And Gray starts to push again as we go up onto the back in 8.6% as we go over that steep kicker. Little look behind, another drop down. It's about keeping that power, using that momentum. SS now, the rider who was in trouble, kicks out the saddle as he goes up and over. The group really have to push here now. It's going to be Said Safrazad who's got the lead. Ollie Jones in second place. Bruce Bird in third place. And it's Mayor Ferry, Graves, Popovic, X100 and SS behind all chasing. You're looking at the cream of the crop at the moment. The fastest riders on MyWhoosh at the moment. Said Safrazad just being passed there by Ollie Jones, who takes the lead. We're riding with Mr. X100 who's at the back of this group at the moment. He's going to want to close that gap down. So on to our next big kicker here. We're in sight of the end of these dunes, pretty much as you come up and over the top of this section, and we swing around to the right. And these never-ending kicks, they are very much like the dunes out in real life. But at the end of them, the site is the whole our riders are looking for is that big Ferrari garage, the Yas Marina areas, and the entrance back down into town. So we're going to be heading in towards that big Ferrari garage, the big red sweeping roof line just coming across the screen as Mr. X100 Pablo Popovic are working the way down SS at the moment. He's a rider who's been distances at 5 seconds behind, and this is something none of them want to do. They can't afford to let that gap go. Mr. X100 on the chase behind. He's got to get this gap back down again. Let's have a look at those time checks. So segment number 4 done. Ollie Jones absolutely motoring through 5 watts per kilo. Look at Saeed Safrazad, 7.2 watts per kilo, 475 watts. That's absolutely flying. There's some serious power production there. And you can just see Ferry, Mayor, Bird, Popovic and Co coming through. Phil Gray's not with the fastest time that time, and that says that he's being caught back and being dropped back into the group, saving a little bit of energy. Remember, we had 9 riders. We're down to 8 riders now with SS at 5 seconds. Pablo Popovic is going to be our 7th place rider of the 7. You can see them all on your screen at the moment. Mr. X100, Bruce Bird, Pablo Popovic, Mitch Ferry, Vidal Mayer, Phil Grace, Co. The distance SS, he's off the back by about 5 seconds. Stefan Van Eest is chasing hard, but he's in the group ahead now of Yusuf Badou, who is in the leading group of 10 riders and has been dispatched back. You can see at front of him Wolf, Moreno, Vargas, Cariglia, all pushing on the right-hand side of the screen. Left-hand side, another attack starting to go yet again. Looks like Jones and Graves are not content with the pace, and they're wanting to do the damage. They're wanting to string this up before we get on to the big climb. So through sector 4 we've gone, the only sector in the June sector. We're now back into town. Sectors 5 and 6 are our next segments. They are longer. They're 2.5k, and remember sector 6 3.5k. So the next segment will kick in. It's going to come in at 18.3k right the way through to 20.8 kilometers. At the moment, Saeed Safrazad with the attack, and maybe deciding that the offence is the best form of defence for the UAE clan team here. Ollie Jones and Phil Graves have made the catch. Behind them, it's Mr. X100, Vidal Mayer and Pablo Popovic, who are left chasing. So here on MyWhoosh, we're into our next block of racing. This is qualifier number 1 of 4 qualifiers and 1 final. The May must be a little bit longer, which allows for a little bit more racing squeezed in there. Those 5 races coming to you live on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel with me, Matt Payne, putting words to the action here as our riders make their way through. Currently, it's 17.3k of a 45 kilometre course. Total height gain is 1,017 meters when they reach the end of the course. Currently 186 meters underneath the wheels of our riders. The leading group of 7 to 8 riders has yo-yoed. It's gone up, it's gone down consistently in there though. Saeed Safrazad, Phil Grace, Ollie Jones, Mitch Ferry, Pablo Popovic, Bruce Bird, Victor Mel SS has been yoing in and out, but has been making it at the moment. That group split into 2 with Grace, Safrazad and Jones on the front. They have what is currently a few seconds lead, about 6 seconds from Mr. X100. You can see what that gap is. Mr. X100 with the red hair, just trying to close the gap down on the right-hand side of him. You can just see Pablo Popovic pushing hard, trying to keep that gap to a minimum. Bruce Bird on the left-hand side of this group just moves up and through now. Mitch Ferry's riding strongly as well. He's a teammate. We do have the UAE clan team are represented in front, but they have been riding as a team today. It's been a team time trial from them at sometimes just to get the pace high enough and to keep this race together. So into segment 5 we go. 7 segments in total. This 2.5 kilometers long from 18.3k right the way to 20.8 kilometers. So we're riding in with Philip Graves. He's our sole leader. We've seen this increasingly. If you're just joining us, Philip Graves on the MyWhoosh qualification race at #1 on the 1st of May. And Philip Graves has been the man who would get the combativity prize so far. He's been on the attack. He's been working hard. He's been really trying to break this up. He's taken a number of riders clear. He's taken his teammate clear at times. He's taken some of the UAE clan team, but the UAE clan team, headed by Mr. X100 Saeed Safrazad, Pablo Popovich, and SS in this group, well, they have been very quick to close those gaps down, not wanting to let the gap go. Will we see another attack as we take our left-hand turn, come sweeping around here, and you can see in front this big climb is going to put the pressure on it yet again. Further back, it's over 2.5 minutes to the chasing group behind, and that should take these riders up and over the top of the elevated roadway, up over the bridge. Big climb, or watch those meters of ascent on the right-hand side of the screen. Keep on ticking up, 203, 204. The leading group at 19.2k. The chase is now at 17.5. The gap that was hovering around the 500-meter marker, 600-meter marker has now gone right out and is currently sitting at 1.7k or so, 1.6 to 1.7k, and that is just showing a little bit in distance because, of course, if you go uphill, the gap in terms of distance is diminished. If you're on a downhill, the physical gaps between the riders front to back will increase. So Bruce Bird on the front left of your screen, now dropping a little bit further back, but this group are pretty much all back together again. Right hand side of your screen, these are the chasers. Who is going to take this out at the end of the race? Well, the way that they're riding at the moment, you can't discount pretty much anybody in this leading group. Some of the riders doing more work than others, but that is all about being smart. These races are won as much with your head as they are with your heart and your lungs. Just like riding on the road or riding on the track, it is about positioning. It's about saving energy, putting your effort in where it counts, and making sure that the riders around you are working harder than you as much as possible, saving as much energy for when you really need it. And the only time you need to see the very front of the race, well, that is when you're going over the finishing line at the top of the Jebel Hafit, the empty mountain that sits atop of the road and looks down onto Al Ain, the UNESCO World Heritage Site. I think it's 28 sites in the UNESCO World Heritage Site down in Al Ain. There's some amazing sites down there, including the beehive tombs that we'll go past a little bit later on. And they are well over 5,000 years old, so amazing history all in and around this area. Both if you were to go visit it in person, or of course if you are out and riding on MyWhoosh. Now, checkpoint number 5 coming up. This is going to be the end of the 2.5k segment. The segment's not counting for points, but what they do count as is seeing who is going well. So the leading group of 9 riders through. Just taking a look at the heart rate at the moment, Pablo Popovich looks to be working hardest, if the numbers are to be believed, in terms of heart rate, 165 in terms of watts per kilo. Currently, that prize will be going to Saeed Safrazad. However, it's Vindar Mail who is leading through time-wise through there, but by no means doing the most work. And quite often at this stage, it's about who's got the lowest heart rate. Bruce Bird always with the low heart rate, as has Mr. X100. Will they have to push that up as they go through the UAE clan team? Well, no surprises that they're all together on time. They've been riding strongly as a team, but they're being challenged with 4 from the UAE clan team, 3 from Yorkshire Pudding Express, and 1 rider each from Draft and Danish Pavlova. So our leading group are still together, still not giving any ground to each other. 21.5k. We're not even at half race distance for our leaders, and already damage has been done. The gaps have opened up, and you can just see that gap opening up to a Yusuf Badu, who is at top right hand side of your screen, just making his way onto Keller's wheel. Richard Keller, Alessio Kegula, looks like Stefan van Elst in that mix as well. Juan David Vargas and Hassan Arethme just going through all these riders. Very, very strong indeed. And in fact, for any category on any of the races, well done if you've put your head above the parapet and have put yourself up into a race. Well done. If you want to have a go at racing, don't forget the easy way to find out how to race is to jump onto the YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel, some great videos from Jeff on there. Everything from how to personalize your avatar, what you need to record, how to get set up on MyWhoosh. There's also some previews of Bahrain. You'll see some of it in the opening countdown shots, and the Bahrain world, an absolutely great one. Also available as the nighttime world and part of the continuing evolution of MyWhoosh as it continues to grow and improve. It's great to be part of that story, and great to be bringing you the action with a very, very aggressive race. What I must admit, after last week's finals, I thought, well, maybe we'll have a little bit of calm, we'll have a little bit of steady racing. We go into qualification one, got the start sheets through, just thought, no way on this planet are we going to find this is going to be easy. And do you know what? It's not been. They've gone very hard from the gun. It's really aggressive riding. Phil Graves continually attacking in the first 10 of 15k. Now everybody else has closed that down. Mitch Ferry, the teammate of Graves, is on the attack on the front. He's really winding it up on the front left of your screen. They're up on the bridge. The chasers behind, well, they are now nearly 2 kilometers down on our race leaders. So the race leaders on the top of the climb, the mix of first and second category riders in group number 2, currently at 21k, the leaders at 22.9. So Graves again on the attack. Phil Graves has been really aggressive on the way in and through, making his way up along. Remember, the segments start to run at 45k in total. The distance our riders continue to push. Remember, they will get in to the next segment. That's going to be number 6 at 25.9. Little way to go, 23.3k, the 45k done, and looks like this group at the moment, they've just about all come back together again, and Phil Graves goes on the attack here. I don't know what he had for breakfast, but I want some of it. He's absolutely flying. He's got some serious, to quote Hugh Potter, some wings on his wheels at the moment as he makes this kick down here. He's not just content with making it hard on the uphill, he's actually winding up on the downhill, and that's a great tactic if you want to shed some of the climbers. So on the uphill, just like you would find out on the roads, if you're lucky enough to, like me, to live somewhere with some big hills pretty much on your doorstep, say lucky, don't always say that on my way home, but if you've got some great hills, if you are a bigger rider, those uphills are going to be absolutely when you've got to be right on it to stay with the fast riders. On the downhills, it's when the lighter riders are at a disadvantage and you've got a chance of really making them hurt. At the moment, leading group now of 4 riders starting to eke out that lead. Saeed Safrazad of the UAE clan team, Phil Graves from Yorkshire Pudding Express, Vidar Mehr going through. Remember, he is currently trying to stretch this out. He's on the Yorkshire Pudding Express team too, same as Phil Graves. Watch out though for Pablo Popovich, Mitch Ferry. All these riders have the ability to take the win here. Bruce Bird, who's seen taking victories at the top of the mountaintop finishes, Mr. X100, one of the strongest riders in there with Saeed Safrazad and SS of that UAE clan team. And can that clan team really put the pressure on everyone else now? Just watching these riders, we're riding in with Saeed Safrazad. They're currently at 25k, nearly done. So well of that halfway marker of 22.5k, 144 beats per minute, getting a little bit of draft assistance as he goes through. So the front of the race, Vidal goes through Philip Grace's teammates for company. They are the 1-2 as they go down this straight. The two Yorkshire Pudding Express riders with a breakaway here. And Graves has put in so many attacks. Every now and then he takes away one of his teammates. Last time this happened, they got about 8 seconds, nearly 9 seconds up the road. They've got to really push to do this. But all the time they do this, it leaves all the other teams to chase. And it leaves riders like Mitch Ferry with nothing to do. They can literally sit in the slipstream and go, no, I'm not doing anything on the front. Get on with it. You knock yourselves out. And this is where the pressure goes on that UAE clan team. And the man who looks to be stepping up is going to be Mr. X100. He's taken the mission on himself to go close that gap down. In front, he's got SS, who has put in a big shift as well. And they are going to close this down. And I think the UAE clan team are having to take it in turns to close these gaps because Graves and Mel just putting a big spurt in. SS goes in over the top. Mr. X100 continues to push. They want to be in with those two leaders as we go into our next segment. So our leaders, Graves, SS, Mr. X100, Vidal Mayer, along with Mitch Ferry, Sage Safrazad, all working well. They've got a bit of a gap. It's currently only a few seconds, about 5 seconds at the moment. Ollie Jones, Pablo Popovich, Bruce Bird, and Sage Safrazad have got to push. They've got to get the gap closed down to these leaders. The brakes are starting to come between these groups when the pressure goes on, and we can see our next big trigger point. So a trigger point is something where when you're racing, where you're going to see an attack, where you're going to see a break, where you're going to see something happen that will give you a chance to pull the trigger and to go off the front. It's going to instigate that move. Riders currently jostling for position, putting in some big numbers, but what they want to do is make sure they've got enough for the climb. The big grassy bank in front is where we kick again, and you've got to have the pace of power. You want to be in the leading group. The riders will come together physically from front to back on the group on your screen as they go in. The speed will drop, currently doing nearly 50 kph. In fact, we're doing 50 kph with Bruce Bird as he makes his way into that pack, and it will absolutely get annihilated on this climb. It will drop right down as the riders go. The front of the group will hit it first, the back of the group will come in. Who's got power? Who's got pace? Who is feeling fresh and can open up the gap? Phil Graves again takes a bit of a dig, but look at the response coming now as everybody wants to answer, everybody wants to be on the front, nobody wants to give a gap here. The group number 2 behind, while they're still down on the seafront as our leaders go on to the climb, and that attack instigated by Graves looks like he is right in the mix here. They're going to go up over the top here. So currently 27.2k. This segment ends. It's a 3.5k segment ending at 29.4. But you can just see as they go over the top, those gaps will grow. Anybody not in with our leaders is now in trouble because the gap will open as they come over the top. Meanwhile, the groups behind, some great riding in there. As you can see, these riders all fighting for position, trying to make their way around most of the front half of the field. Now past the halfway mark of 22.5k, our leaders at 27.6 kilometers. So Graves and Co dropping down off that bridge again. Graves working hard. Bruce Bird comes over the top. We've not seen too much of Bruce on the front, saving his powder potentially for the big climb of the finale. So the riders in the lead left of your screen, and interestingly, this man, Jason Osborne, not in the mix for the lead. He's got Paul Odlin and Zach Nair with him, and Zach Nair from the PB Insured, next PB Insured squad. You've got, of course, Odlin, the teammate there of the rider on the offensive on the front. That's the Yorkshire Pudding Express rider, Oliver Simmons in there. But of course, today's races, they're all about making sure you get a qualifying ride in that is seen as being a clean ride without any technical glitches or issues, and one where all the data is reported. The team at MyWhoosh, the verification starts before the riders actually start racing, and of course that is then continued onwards using technologies like AI, using of course the data that they've got. It's not just about people's FTP, but the whole package is looked at. And that's also the same is true with the categories. They are very dynamic and responsive categories, and that's why you'll see people on the boundaries between category 1 and 2, or 2 and 3, moving up and down as the category boundaries shift. It's not rigid and fixed. It gives great racing every time because the categories are dependent on who's in. So if you have a particularly strong field, you may find yourself further down those categories. If you have a day when you've got more of a chance, you might find yourself further up those categories because there may be less riders turned up who are normally in that category 1. So you might find yourself promoted upwards, or vice versa. If there are a lot of really strong category 1 riders go in, then you might find if you're a category 2 rider, you might get pushed down. Chance to race against different people, be competitive in your race category, and that's what we all do it for. We all want to take that win. Well, one man who wants to take it more than most, I think, is Phil Graves. He's absolutely flying at the moment. He's got the gap. Ollie Jones is behind him. Now, Ollie Jones, he took the sprint win qualification number 3, riding for that Danish Pavlova squad. Jason Osborne is his teammate further back, and Graves and Jones are going to go through this segment first. The group is fractured as they do so. Here come the times. So as we saw, Jones going through, Graves going through behind him, then it was Bird, Popovich, Ferry, Mr. X100, SS, and Vidal Mer. And the rider missing from here is Saeed Safrazad. So Saeed out of the mix now. He's not going to be getting battered by the Yorkshire Pudding Express in the slightest at the moment because he's a long way back. This is going to come down. The clan team now dropping a rider. They're in equal standing with the Yorkshire Pudding Express, 3 riders of each in that front mix. Now, Phil Graves, another gap for Graves, 300 metres, but look, 3 seconds, sorry, who's coming behind? Mr. X100, he's got Popovich with him. He's bringing his teammates. Safrazad at 41, 51 seconds to Saeed, really taking it back. And that looks to me like he had a technical issue. Just like you would find in a road race, you could get a puncture. People do that on their bikes when they're riding on a turbo. It does happen. You get a front wheel puncture. Some people riding on static machines, something like a Wahoo bike or similar, or you get the static things like the Watt bikes, where you've got something that will interact with the game. Of course, don't forget you can jump onto a turbo, get your bike hooked up, download the app from the App Store, the MyWhoosh app, downloadable on the more recent sets of technology. As the technology improving, of course, all the time, and of course, the game constantly developing and evolving as we see more and more racing. Really sets a really accurate platform. And remember, of course, our riders in category 1 having to dual reports. That means that they have to have 2 sources of data. One might be their turbos trainer as they pedal, the turbo recording exactly how many watts they produce. Might be a power crank that they've got, or a set of power pedals on there that produces the power data that then tells us that both are matching up, and they're absolutely spot on. Phil Graves currently leading, Mr. X100 leading this chasing group with the red hair here on his right side. Pablo Popovich, Vidal Mer, Mitch Ferry, Bruce Berg getting a lift here with the UAE clan team, trying to close down Phil Graves once again. We're coming into 31.1k at the moment. So these riders really are the ones that we know are going to be in the mix at the finale. And looks like Saeed Safrazad out of that mix. So that means that we're going to have 8 riders fighting for position. It's not an insurmountable gap, 1 minute 30 seconds going on to a mountain top finish. But it's a serious disadvantage, and it means he's going to have a lot of work. I think Mr. X100, Pablo Popovich, and SS are going to find that the UAE clan team's hopes are resting on their shoulders as Mr. X100 closes down the gap to Graves. And we're going to see an attack over the top. This is where Mitch Ferry is going to be being looked at, as is Vidal Mer. The riders, as you close the gap down, that's the classic counter-attack point. Somebody's just been riding really hard to close the gap. You then kick over the top, particularly if you've got teammates, as Graves has there. When Graves gets caught, he could go over the top. He could get one of his teammates to take it on. You can just see at the moment the UAE clan team just wanted to keep control on the front of this group. So here on MyWhoosh, on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel, our riders continuing around this right-hand sweeping turn here. We have a 32k on the clock for our leaders, the groups behind. Well, the big names that have been distanced include Jason Osborne, and these groups spread right the way out through the side, through the countryside, out and around the worlds of MyWhoosh. Don't forget, lots of new worlds on the way. We've just seen the launch of Bahrain as well, and that's definitely going to be really interesting to see how that rise and how that progresses and develops. The team are working hard to make sure everything continues to move forward. Really a realistic feel as you get on and jump on the bike, as you ride the mass and the data behind the drafting. Very, very accurate. And of course, a great platform to race on because of the dual reporting of all of the category 1 riders, and of course the verification through the field, including the use of AI. Always great to see. We're making the technology to do as much work as possible to make it as smart as possible. So chasing group number 1 on the way down. This is group 2 on the road, being led down through there, and you can just see that Hassan Arethmi is going to be the next rider. They've caught Saeed Safrazad, who is going to be in the mix of riders. I think as they come through, they're going to be on his heels. They're not all that far in front. Stefan Van East in there. Just taking a look at the time gap. Safrazad, I think he's still about 40 seconds up the road. So going to be taking a little bit of doing to get him back. Yusuf Badu in there. In fact, Safrazad, looking according to those numbers, like he's close to get down on the leaders. Yet again, though, left-hand side of your screen. Well, this is almost a status quo, isn't it? We've got Philip Graves on the offensive, looking to take this on 157 beats a minute. Great cadence, 90 revs per minute. Mr. X100, I think, is going for a weightlifting session. He's at 66 revs a minute. So that's 1 pedal rev a second, pretty much. And that is a big power effort going in there. That's going to tire the legs as we come on to the climb. The classic is certainly true. If your legs hurt, you're pushing too hard on the pedals. If your lungs hurt, you're not pushing on the pedals hard enough. And if it's both that's hurting, well, you're doing it just right when you're in a race because you want to be on the front. Phil Graves definitely doing it right again. You can just see those numbers as he motors along. He's currently doing 44 kilometers an hour, 41, 42 being done by the chasers behind that. He's going to open that gap up. So we are well on our way through the course now. We've been through town, we've been over the dunes, come back in through the city. We're going back out on towards the climb. It starts at 34.3k all the way up to the 45 kilometer marker, and at 34k with only 0.3 until we start to make our way in to the big climb. Phil Graves with a 4-second lead. And it's yo-yoed up and down. He's been caught back multiple times. He's gone on the attack again. Behind SS, Mr. X100, Mitch Ferry trying to close him down, but the left-hand turn taken by Graves, and immediately behind him come the chasers. So this is going to come back together again. It's going to come back together just as they go on to the climb. And this is where we're going to see whether Phil Graves was bluffing with all those attacks. Has he got the power to answer the big climbers? This elevated roadway, this bridge over the water, will take us across on to the Jebel Hafid, the empty mountain climb that has been used for stages of the UAE Tour. It's one of the world's best driving roads. It goes out from a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Al Ain all the way up onto the top of the mountain, and this climb really are modelled on that. Not a climb of massively steep gradients. It does have steps, it has kicks, it has some dips in there. We rarely see it going into double figures on the entire climb, and in fact the steepest part of this climb is right at the very end before we level out on the plateau in the sprint into the finish. So that is when it gets to its steepest, right at the very end. An evil bit of course design or road design by whoever was out mapping it out, as we see this group going up onto the climb now. Bruce Bird has won on this climb. The first qualification last time around. Ollie Jones a winner before. Phil Graves never off the podium pretty much on the way through. A big money winner as well. Mitch Ferry riding strong. The whole UAE clan team Don't discount any single one of them. It looks like the tech issues that beset Stage 100 are now behind him, and he's now harnessing those watts to kick himself up this climb and really take everybody in. The UAE clan team have been riding strongly. They'll want to take away top team again. They've done it with alarming regularity as we move past now these tombs at the side, the beehive shapes. They are ancient tombs. They exist in real life. You can go visit them if you head out to the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and on the entrance to the mountains, the tombs, part of that UNESCO Heritage Site at Al Ain, not that far from Abu Dhabi. A quick trip out, in fact, in riding distance if you're good. If, like me, that would probably take you a little bit too long, you don't want to go out in the middle of the day. These are loads and loads, literally hundreds of kilometers of brand new cycling tracks in Abu Dhabi and across the United Arab Emirates. Really is becoming a sport and cycling Emirati, and great to see that investment with so many people, the whole of the population able to take part, jump on, grab a bike, get out and ride on those trails and the tracks, really improving the health of everybody. And that investment in cycling reflected with the pro men's and the pro women's team as well, of course, in things like MyWhoosh and all of these sort of races, all helping to get those get people bums in saddles and people turning those pedals. And you can just see that leading group at the moment. They are absolutely flying. 35k, they're on the climb at 35k. The chasers behind, they're at 33k. They're on the flat on the way in towards the base of the climb. Ollie Jones just in the middle of this mix. Philgrave in there as well. Graves working very strongly all the race long. But we're now coming in towards the finale here. Another big kick going. Who's going on the offensive this time round? We're just riding in with Mr. X100 who's answering that attack. Up on the front, it looks to me like that's going to be a Mitch Ferry who is really trying to wind it up. And everybody now knows that they've got to answer this attack by Mitch Ferry. So it's Ferry in the blue socks at the moment. He's going to get past here by SS going with the gold cap. Right-hand side with the white cap, that is Pablo Popovic. And then Bruce Bird comes up very quickly indeed, as does Mr. X100. So at the moment, this group is not splintering. If you look top right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the map view. You see those dots all together. A little bit further behind, Jason Osborne. Now, I can only speculate that Osborne had tech issues at the start. We would expect to see Jason Osborne fighting for the win. At the moment, Jason Osborne at 31k, with our leaders approaching 37 kilometers. So qualification race at number 1 in May. 4 qualifying races. One big prize money final to come at the end of the month of May. Our riders out on the Jebel Hafid. They were here last week for the final. It was our week number 1 qualifier as well in the April block. And all these riders know this climb well. It is a staple diet of a lot of the rides out on the roads of MyWhoosh. It's a great climb to climb. Even I don't mind it. I really dislike climbs. I was going to say something else there. I don't despise them, not quite as much as I did, but definitely prefer it when it's a rolling course normally. But the Jebel Hafid, a real challenge. It's just nice length, sitting at what is essentially 10.5k long. Mr. X100 knows this climb well. I've ridden up here with Mr. X100 on the MyWhoosh's ride. I say with him, he was somewhere up in the distance. So was SS. So they disappeared off into the distance. I was trying to chase them down. There was no danger of that. They were leaving me with an increase in distance when we've been out on this climb on the MyWhoosh's ride. And you can join in too. Make sure you download the app, get your turbo hooked up, and come out and join us. It's great to see people joining in and getting out and riding. And of course, racing now. SS on the push here goes up onto the front. The first 3 riders there are all from the UAE clan team. Mr. X100, SS, and Pablo Popovic. But Bruce Bird now interjects, jumps into the mix. Bird, a regular winner on here. But the pressure is on, and Mr. X100 has launched an attack. It's 6.8 watts. It's nothing but an attack. 7.3. This is the pressure going on. Well, he's turning on the nitrox at the moment. He's opening up the gap. This is where he's got to push. This is where you've got to go. This is what we want to see. Aggressive, real tough riding as you come into the finish. We're at 38k of 45. And this is a big, brave, bold straight from home. Can he hold it all the way to the finish? His teammates will be helping. He's got Pablo Popovic and SS sat on the front of the group at the moment, defending that position. You can just see Vidal Met and Phil Graves now know that they have got to do some work. They've got to get back across. They will not want to let Mr. X100 go. They know that they cannot leave him off in front unchallenged. The question is, who is going to do the work to pull him back? The UAE clan team won't do that. They may well attack once that gap has gone. I suspect they're not going to do too much work. They're going to let Mr. X100 make some gap here and then try and sprint across. What they don't want to do is tow up the competition. Pablo Popovic at the moment now starting to attack on the right of your screen, but he has got Phil Graves behind him, and this is where the teammates has to be careful because Popovic has not broken the elastic, he has not snapped the group, and he's in danger here of riding the group on to his teammate here. Now, has there been some communication from Mr. X100 back saying, I'm going to go early, I'm not going to make the finish. What you need to do is ride strong enough, and we need to start dropping some bodies on the way through. At the moment, nobody is being distanced. We're going to hit this next steep section. Mr. X100 goes, and SS has gone across the gap. I think his teammate is going to bridge to him here. So this is looking good. Oh, it's Mayer who's got across now. This is looking like it's going to get very interesting. In fact, it is SS who's gone with Mayer chasing. So Mr. X100 just getting dropped back down. SS has gone across the gap. These two need to work together now. They have a 5-second gap. Popovic won't work. He's going to sit back. He's going to try and let everybody else do the work. You see his watts per kilo are lower. He's just sitting there in the group, guarding against another attack. Ollie Jones, Phil Graves, Bruce Bird, Mitch Ferry. They have to break up the UAE clan team, who have done a great job. They closed those early breakaways down. Phil Graves was incredibly aggressive. The Yorkshire Pudding Express was absolutely battering the riders, but he couldn't get the gap open. Now Graves comes across 8.8 watts per kilo. We just seen from Graves. Graves at 7.3. He's going to come up across. You can see a response coming from SS. And as Graves tries to make the back wheel here, SS is going to jump clear. So SS has responded to it. Graves has gone hard. Mr. X100 sees Graves ease off. He goes over the top again. They do not want to take Graves to the finish here, clearly. And they are really doing some damage behind. Saeed Safra's had his minutes and minutes down at the moment. Bruce Bird is at 10 seconds. Mitch Ferry at 10 seconds. Ollie Jones at 3 seconds. Popovic has got Graves for company, Mr. X100, Vidal Mer and SS, but it is the UAE clan team who have the strength in depth. Can they bring the clan home in style to take the team? Well, they're going to be heading into the 5K to go marker when we hit 39.9 to into 45. Remember, we're also into segment 7. This will finish at 40K, 40.2K to be precise. This is going to be close. This is really tight racing here. We are seeing attack after attack. Nobody is breaking off the front, and it's the back of the group that are struggling. Mitch Ferry and Bruce Bird are now being distanced, and Mr. X100 has gone again. 7.5 watts per kilo. This is incessant attacking by the UAE clan team. They are really trying to rip it up. The Jebel Hafid here. The empty mountain is full of action today as we make our way up to this mountaintop finish, race number 1. And Mr. X100 has got his teammate Pablo Popovic behind. Vidal Mayer riding strongly. He is right in the mix. He is Phil Graves' teammate. Ollie Jones is in the mix as well. Ollie Jones riding it for the Danish Pavlova squad. The question is he going to be able to hold it together to stay with the group? He's doing a good job at the moment, but looks to me like Graves is on the attack coming after Mr. X100. We'll get it confirmed as they come through this segment number 7. So give us a good indication as they come through, and Graves has almost made contact here. So let's have a look. UAE clan team and Yorkshire Pudding Express, the 2 fastest riders through there, with Mr. X100 and Phil Graves going through 4 seconds in time just on that segment alone. Behind was Popovic SS at 5 seconds, 5.183 Vidal Mer and Ollie Jones at 5.415. You can see these 6 riders now are cleared. Now comes through that checkpoint Bruce Bird and Mitch Ferry. They have lost over 25 seconds to the fastest rider, so X100 through that gap. And that is in that last segment, that's segment number 7, the 5K that takes us into that 40-kilometer marker. So the damage being done on the front, and Phil Graves now has a slight gap. He's back on the attack. Mr. X100 has gone after him. He's going to go past him. Now look at the response from Graves. He's got to get out of that, so he kicks up. There's you see Mr. X100 come past Pablo Popovic. You're with him, his teammate. At the moment, SS is the man in danger. He's 2 seconds down. He's got to get back across a bit further downhill. Right-hand side of your screen, you can see Bruce Bird and Mitch Ferry are only a couple of 100 meters, 200 meters behind our leaders. Mr. X100, Pablo Popovic, SS from the UAE clan team. Ollie Jones right in the mix for the Danish Pavlova squad. You've got a Yorkshire Pudding Express, Victor Vidal-Meyer and Philip Graves in that mix as well. But who will it be? Will we get a Pavlova or a Pudding over the line first? Or can the UAE clan team just really hand it out to them on a plate today here as they're on the climb? Into the last 4 kilometers now. Time is ticking down. If somebody wants to go on a long-range attack, they've got to go quick. They've got to go hard. We've seen another attack on the front, and I suspect it's come from Mr. X100 again. Yes, it has. He's gone on the offensive, but look who comes up and answers him straight away. Philip Graves has got an answer at the moment to Mr. X100. Mr. X100 has got an answer for Philip Graves, and the rest of the UAE clan team now come squeezing through. Pablo Popovic and Vidal Mer, the other of the Pudding Express, come up as well. We're looking at the gaps, and SS now at 4 seconds, 3 seconds. He's going to come charging from behind. He's at 7 watts per kilo. He's got to make it count. The way to get away from people is to break past fast enough to break the elastic. They might be at 25 kilometers, 28 kilometers an hour on this climb, but it is still sufficient to get some draft advantage from coming from the back. Now, who is going to go and put in our next attack here? They are all taking it in turns to have a pop. And you can't afford to hesitate if you mess about and just take too much time just to recover. And then somebody else is having a go on the front, and that is making it hard up this climb because there is very little time to rest between these attacks. It's seen Bruce Bird and Mitch Ferry be distant. Saeed Safrazad well over 5 minutes behind. Stephen East doing the same as well. The leaders, well, the top riders are going to come from this group. The question is, who is going to be able to hold it together? Ferry and Bird are at 37 seconds. They're not going to be in the mix whatsoever. It is going to come down to who of these riders in this leading group can take this out. Saeed Safrazad, well, he's on to the big climb, but he has got a metaphorical and physical mountain to climb to get back up to these leaders. That's not going to happen unless he invents teleporting and time travels up to the front now. So here we come in to the final 3 kilometers of qualifier number 1 here on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. Qualifier number 1 in May. We're on the empty mountain. We're on the Jebel Hafid. So we are on the big climb up to the top. There's a military base at the top. There is a TV area. There is a palace, a fortress up at the top of the climb. There's also a hotel up there, if my memory serves me correctly, but we've got to get there yet. We're over 2.5 kilometers to the finish with Phil Graves on the attack, and this time around Pablo Popovic is the man doing the work to close that gap down. Graves gets caught now. Mr. X100 goes over the top. 9.6. We have not seen a 9.6 attack so far this race, but we have now, and that's instantly put 3 seconds into the main group behind Philip Graves. Answers again. This is real thrilling stuff. These two riders, they are like two boxers in a boxing ring. One throws a punch, the other one counters it. The next punch gets thrown, another counter comes across. There is nothing to break these two riders up at the moment. Mr. X100 answering everything Graves could throw at him. Everything that Graves throws, well, Mr. X100 is answering, but the UAE clan team have also got the strength in depth. They have just pushed everybody into the distance. SS at the moment, the back of that group. So Vidal Mer for the Yorkshire Pudding Express, Phil Grace for the Yorkshire Pudding Express. For the UAE clan team, we have Pablo Popovic, Mr. X100 and SS, and the Danish Pavlova rider, the sweet in the savoury. That is going to be Ollie Jones. Jones has done relatively little work on the front. Is that because he can't, or is it because he's saving himself a sprint winner in qualification 3 last month? He has a big kick. Is he saving it for one big kick at the end? Remember, the steepest slope is the last kick up onto the top of the mountain. As we come around these twists and turns, we'll see an archway and a rockway in front of us. That's not the finish. It levels, and there's a final kick up to the final plateau where the turn is, that long sweeping left turn that takes us to the finish. This is where the riders have to make it count. Who has got the kick? Who's going to get the timing just right? You could see a rider go for a long one. We are now into 1.8 kilometers, 1,800 meters left to go. Now, this depends on who's got the kick and the power. Left-hand side of your screen, you can just see our leaders all together at the moment. A little bit of a break in the action. It's only very minimal at the moment. Everybody knowing there's a limited time to recover if they're putting in an attack at this stage behind. Bruce Bird and Mitch Ferry are chasing, but this leading group who have the head of the race right up in front. Looks like our leading second cap riders now onto the climb as well. You see them on the right-hand side of your screen, along with quite a number of our climbers and riders in the first category who've dropped back. But the leader's gone again, and this time Pablo Popovic goes on the attack. He's been answering the attacks from Philip Graves. So left-hand side of the screen is the leader. This time it's Popovic with the gap. Graves goes after him again, and you can see that Graves is having to answer all the attacks, whereas we are seeing the UAE clan team being selective in their attacks. Popovic is at 8.5 watts per kilo. He's got a 7-second gap at the moment on Mayer, on Jones, on Graves. They have let this gap go quite long here. We are at 43.8k. This is going to come down. It's going to be close now because that is a substantial gap up to Popovic. We'll watch this time gap right-hand side. I suspect that's going to change slightly. I can't imagine he's got 15 seconds that quickly. But at the moment, he's continuing this attack at 7 watts per kilo. Behind, it looks like Mr. X100. He's pretty close. This is not the top finish arch. Remember, this is just the level before the final kick as we come in underneath the rock arch here. So leader on the left of your screen, the chasers on the right now. Mr. X100 starts to wind it up as well. They're going to try and put Graves, Mayer and Jones in trouble. SS is now 30 seconds down. They're not going to see him again, but Popovic has got the gap. Mr. X100 is chasing behind. Popovic is coming in towards the steep section. This is where you've got to have something left. You've not seen those numbers in the gradient. That's a grey box in your map. Go into the red yet. We are going to go to double figures on this section of climb. It is the hardest, nastiest piece of the climb, and it comes just before the top. It levels as we go past the tower at the top. Popovic is coming into it. 3.5% for him. The chasers behind still on the flat. Now they hit the climb. 4.5, 5.5, 7.5, 10.5, nearly 11% for Popovic on that steeper section. Now the chasers are coming into the same. 7.5. Now they hit 11%. They've got to go hard. Ollie Jones has saved something for the end here. Popovic is leading them through. I think Popovic is going to take this. It's going to be the UAE clan team who are going to take race victory. Pablo Popovic takes the win. He's in position number 1. Who's going to come in behind? It's Ollie Jones. We said he was quiet. He comes through for 2. Mel goes through for 3. 4 is going to be Grace. 5 will be Mr. X100. Subject confirmation, of course. Let's have a little look at the results. It is Popovic, Jones, Mayer, Graves, and Mr. X100. 5 absolute class athletes with the UAE clan team taking the race winning in the shape of Popovic, Jones in second place, Mayer in third, Graves in fourth, Mr. X100 in fifth. SS could complete, though, a team victory for the UAE clan team. It's 3 riders to count. 3 riders to count. 3 riders who've got to be added together to get that time, and it's going to be SS. This is going to be a clear winner for the clan team because they're going to have 3 riders in clear of all the rest of them, and I think Popovic, Mr. X100 and SS are going to take that away. The Yorkshire Pudding Express should take second team here because they've got Mitch Ferry, and Ferry's putting in an attack. He's going to come through. Has he got the best of Bruce Bird? Bird has won on the top of this climb. Can he get that gap down? I think Mitch Ferry has opened up sufficient now as he comes in. He should take 7th place, and this should round off second of our teams. Don't forget all of the results on the MyWhoosh website. Make sure you go up on there once those results are uploaded. They will be classed as unofficial until we have official confirmation and all those results verified. Once it says official, then they are the final set of results. So Bruce Bird going up there, his heart rate for the whole of the race, 128. So I think Bruce Bird having an easier ride, making sure he qualified, but not up in that race mix. You can compare that to Pavlo Popovic's heart rate, 163, highest heart rate of the lot, and of course our fastest finisher coming over the line at 2.037 seconds clear of Danish Pavlova rider Ollie Jones, who didn't do a single attack on the climb, saved it all for just the right time. Couldn't close down Popovic, but he did beat Mayor Graves, Mr. X100 SS, along with Mitch Ferry and Bruce Bird. Now, Stefan van Eest, another of our regular fast performers on the left of your screen. He's at 43k, about 300 meters in front of Said Safrazad. And Safrazad running for the UAE clan team. Stefan van Eest, he rides for the Abus Lecole squad, and he's going to be their first finisher. Bruce Bird, the solo representative of the draft squad, but some great racing today, constant attacking, real aggressive racing, and a great finish there. You could just see Philip Graves. I mean, he probably gets the combativity award, but he doesn't take top spot, and that is because he was constantly answered. One after the other, the UAE clan team closed him down, and the United Arab Emirates team doing an amazing job of racing here on MyWhoosh. The Yorkshire Pudding Express taking what should be second team, but still lots to play for. Our second and third category riders all the way spread out and up the hill. So Stefan van Eest into his last 1.5 kilometres, not all that far behind comes the chase. So we've got Van Eest, then Safrazad, Badu, Almarethmi, then going to be Kagia and Wolf. Still plenty of people coming in. Hassan at the moment, though, doing a great ride here as a second category rider, mixing it up with the first category riders. He's going to be putting a case surely forward for being moved up into category number 1. The UAE Falcons rider Hassan Al Remethri going very quickly up here. Yusuf Badu, well, he has got the battle on at the moment with Al-Marethri behind Cagliula, chasing on the right of your screen, left of your screen. Stefan van Eest coming around these turns, still got a fair distance, including that final slope. So this is second of the second to last climbing sections here for Van Eest. So Stefan on the ascent at the moment, the penultimate steep section. The chasers behind have got to get round the turn. Sandwiched between Van Eest and Hassan, between Stefan and Hassan, you're going to see Saeed Safrazad. He is in between the two groups on your screen at the moment. So Stefan van Eest about to come over the top. It will level, then he'll see that final kick. He can now see the radio master tower that's on the top of the Jebel Hafit, on top of the empty mountain. The chasers behind, still a little bit of work to do. They still have what is going to be 2.1 or 2K now to go for them. The 1.6 to go for Stefan in front with Saeed Safrazad sat in between. Let's look and see if we can see the rider in between. No sign of him at the moment. I think the gap between Stefan and Hassan are too big. Yusuf in the fight there with Hassan. So Hassan in the green jersey on the right of your screen, the yellow jersey. That is Yusuf. But on the left-hand side, final kick up. This mean double figure ascent, the 11% gradient kicking in halfway up the slope. It then levels off as you come over the top. And Stefan will know that he's got a slight downhill downhill as he crests the top here, and then it levels as you go around that left-hand turn and in. So Stefan van Est coming around onto this left-hand turn, that sweeping turn around the finish line, pretty much where the UAE Tour finish was through goes Stefan. Great ride by him here today. So he's going to be our next rider. He's just in front of the chasers behind. So Saeed, Yusuf and Hassan are the three riders chasing to come in to the finish. Stefan van Easter just to finish. So some amazing racing so far. Just watching our riders kick around these things. Looks like Yusuf Badu just going clear here of Hassan Al-Ramethri. Hassan are going to be, I think, taking away our first second category rider. Yusuf Badu just in front of him as Saeed Safrazad. It's going to be 1 minute 23 in front, but looks like Yusuf with about 8 seconds back to Hassan. Both these riders with another 1:58 back to Kayula, and then Reno and Abdullah a bit further back from them. So Saeed now coming up through that rock arch and just seeing it level out. It feels like it's actually level. It's not. It is still a slight gradient that just plays tricks on the legs as you come into this final kick. As you ride up this slope on MyWhoosh at this last section, it feels like you should run into it at a lot of pace because it feels like you're always going downhill. You're not. And it's just because you've been climbing for so long. You get that when you're out riding the roads, whether that's on a mountain in France or whether you're out and riding up or down something really long. A lot of the teams out in Calpe again and out in Mallorca. The Mallorca 3-1-2 taking place at this last weekend with some amazing performances. 312 kilometres out and around the island. And Sean Kelly actually out there and riding as well. Great to see him still turning the pedals in anger. But it is definitely a very fast day to be out and riding on MyWhoosh. The climbs here, well, those initial kickers quite short and sharp. The final climb, though, is going to see the decider, and we saw that at the front of the race here today. Now, Saeed Safrazad is the rider approaching the line. He's going to take the left-hand turn around the top here, and he can see the gantry coming into sight for the finish line here on MyWhoosh. So the Sunday Race Club and men's qualification round number 1, Saeed Safrazad goes in and through. He finishes his race here today, and Saeed is going to round out the top 10 positions. So Saeed coming in some 8:28 down on the race winner, but the riders well spread out, with Pablo Popovic taking the win for the UAE clan team, Ollie Jones taking second, Vidar Meir taking third for 3 different teams, the UAE clan team, the Danish Pavlova squad, and the Yorkshire Pudding Express. UAE clan team taking away what should be the team win with Popovic, along with Mr. X100 and SS bringing them home. The Yorkshire Pudding Express should take away the second of the teams, with Vidar Meir, Philip Graves, and Mitch Ferry coming in and through. So our riders are working well, coming down in towards the finish. It looks to me like the gang about to come over the finish. It's going to be Yusuf Badu, going to be the next rider in. So taking that left-hand turn, in he comes. Yusuf doing a great ride here. He's going to take 11th place. Hassan, I think, is going to come across. He's going to be our first rider in terms of Category 2 riders. Great ride by him. So in towards the line comes Hassan, and Hassan just taking that left turn. Going to be a good ride by him. He's going to take our first second category rider here on qualification round number 1. So in and through he goes. That is job done as he comes in and through the line. He takes 12th place. So some great racing here today. A quick roundup for you. Top positions of Meir, Jones and Popovic. The top teams, well, UAE clan team taking away the win. Amazing racing. Lots of great action. Don't forget to tune in for our women's race as well. From me and Matt Payne, from everyone at MyWhoosh, thank you for watching. Ashufkum ala khair.